We are live in Omaha with Warren Buffett. We've been talking about a lot of the issues facing Wall Street, facing financial regulatory reform. But we've also been looking at the economy over the weekend here. Over the weekend, we got the chance to speak with Matt Rose, who is the CEO of Burlington Northern Santa Fe. We're sitting on one of his rail cars right now. The railroads are some of the very first places that see turns in the economy. They see it as they talk about the coal shipments moving, as they see retailers ordering more or less. And over the weekend, we got to speak with Mr. Rose to ask him what he is seeing right now in the railroads. Listen in.
We monitor 22 commodity groups across the railroad, everything from iron, steel, metals, containers, coal, chemicals, automobiles. And if you look at last year, every one of those commodity groups were negative. If you look at last week, every one of those 22 were positive.
That tells us a little bit about how far we've come in this economy. But, Warren, you look at a lot of different factors in the economy. This is a particularly difficult time to try and figure out what's going on. Where do you think we stand right now in the economy?
Well, I actually, it may not be quite so difficult. A couple of months ago when we talked, I said we were seeing little bits of improvement here and there, but it was pretty spotty. In the last couple of months, in most of our basic businesses, we have seen real strength. So the economy has picked up, I think, a lot of strength in March and April. It hasn't been, won't be translated into huge changes in unemployment soon, but the economy is starting to move.
Where do you see it? Which businesses?
Well, we see it particularly in our businesses that supply other businesses across the spectrum. Now, ISCAR, we sell these small cutting tools that are used in big machine tools, that, whether at Boeing or General Motors or heavy industry all over the world. And we have seen a really huge pickup in March. Started in December. It was gradually improving just a little bit, and it really has taken off. And we have a company that handles distribution of electronic components down in Fort Worth. It sells all over to everybody in sight. It has been booming. I mean, it's huge. We're glad we've got inventory because it's flying out the door, and that's going to thousands of customers all over. So there's been a real change in the last few months.
This is more than just rebuilding inventories?
Yeah, it is more than that. We can't rebuild our own inventories because it's moving so fast. And no, it's much more than nobody wants a big inventory of cutting tools or even these electronic components, because they're putting them into products right now. They're manufacturing right now. So there's a big pickup. I don't mean we're back to where we were 3 years ago or anything of the sort, but the economy is moving. And incidentally, that's what I would have expected in this world. I mean, the American economy is an amazing, it's an amazing engine of growth over time. And we may try to mess it up from occasionally, and we go to excesses and we make mistakes and all of that. But if you look at the history of the country, I mean, this country works. It's a mistake to bet against it.
Is this a sharp V snapback recovery?
It's a pretty big snapback. I don't know. V conveys sort of something you get right back up to the top very quickly, but it's a long way. It's very different than some saucer-like thing that is very elongated. It's real movement.
Most of what you've mentioned, though, these businesses are industrial businesses. Do you see it in your consumer lines as well?
We see it to a degree in consumer lines. I mean, at NetJets or our jewelry business and all, those are coming back. People have regained confidence. They were paralyzed, a little over a year ago. And our customers flying on NetJets, they still own the planes. They were still paying the monthly fee, but they just weren't flying as much. They weren't buying jewelry. All of that we're seeing a pickup in. It's not back to where it was, 2 or 3 years ago, but behavior has really changed.
We talked to Mohammed El-Arian, and you know him from
PIMCO.
Sure. He's got a theory that PIMCO has been focusing on about the new normal, about consumers not going back to the same ways of spending. They've got a lot of debt that they've taken on. Their house prices have not come back. Is that a fair and valid assessment of the economy as well? And how do you match that up with what you're talking about?
Well, for years, what you might call the normal was just leveraging up more and more. So it was getting to new higher layers. And I don't think that's going to happen. But consumers, the ones that can handle it like to spend. I mean, we saw them this weekend at our furniture store. you know, in a week we sold $35 million worth of goods. That's a lot of goods to move in Omaha, Nebraska in a week in a home furnishing store. We saw a lot of jewelry sales. And the American public over time is going to spend money. What we don't want them to do is to keep leveraging up like they did, and everybody refining houses, taking money out of their house and using it to consume. But I don't think you have to worry about the American consumer over time.
Not worry about them over time, but you just mentioned that you don't think the unemployment picture is going to improve drastically anytime soon.
It takes a while. I mean, we are net hiring people at Berkshire. Last year we were letting people go every month. You know, I don't know toward the end of the year exactly the figures, but now we're hiring people. But when they talk about jobs, we have jobs when we have demand for our goods. I mean, we're not going to hire somebody to stand around and just so we can. And so the best jobs program is demand, and demand is coming back, and that means we hire people.
Corporations were dealing with incredibly high productivity numbers where they were squeezing more and more out of their employees. Do you think businesses across America are in a position where they have to hire?
Well, we have to hire sometimes. I mean, when the Burlington is moving 173,000 carloads, they need more people than when they were at 155. I hope it goes to 200,000 and we'll need a lot more. But that's happening at some of our businesses, not all of our businesses, but some of our businesses. But the unemployment rate comes down slower than the rate at which business improves. So it's going to take a while on that. And residential housing is still very poor. I mean, our brick business, our insulation business, those businesses have not taken off because, as I said in the annual report, there's an overhang of inventory in residential housing. I think that'll be gone within a year.
Okay. Senator Bond has a question as well. Senator?
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Buffett, you talked about we're doing well unless somebody messes up, and you're right, and I agree with you. There's basic strength in the economy, but I'm very worried that the small businesses are not hiring and growing. They're worried about taxes going up. They're worried about the interest rates. And I would appreciate your view on whether we are looking at paying much higher interest rates on the debt we're running up. We just saw that advisors are saying we're going to have that governments that are running deficits are going to have to start paying higher interest rates. When are the Chinese going to start demanding significantly higher interest rates on U.S. credit, spreading high interest rates throughout the economy?
It's certainly hard. It's certainly hard to imagine deficits like we've been running or other countries have been running being consistent with low interest rates over time. So if you could really run deficits of 10% of GDP and not have anything bad happen, people would have figured that out a long time ago. I mean, it's too much fun to do, but there will be a price to be paid for the medicine that we used in order to break out of our panic situation with the huge deficits. And our Congress, but governments around the world are going to have to come to grips with how they bring down those deficits, or people are going to get very afraid of lending money. Who wants to lend money to somebody that is going to follow a long-term policy of running deficits of 10%? It's unsustainable over time. And if you can borrow in your own money, what you have is you sow the seeds of terrific inflation down the road. And if you borrow in other currencies, eventually people quit lending you money.
Well, that message needs to go to the administration as well as Congress, and I hope they'll listen to you.
I believe Melissa has a question as well. Melissa?
Yeah, Mr. Buffett, I wanted to get back to the issue of Lloyd Blankfein, if we can, for just a moment. I understand that you have confidence in him as a CEO, and he certainly has done a lot for shareholders during the financial crisis. But is it possible at this point in time in Goldman's history, when it's soul-searching and trying to signal a culture change at the company, that perhaps it would be best for the company to have a new CEO?
He's going through a tough period. But incidentally, Goldman Sachs, as I remember back around 1970, there was a big problem about Penn Central and the commercial paper. There was another problem, and Gus Levy was in charge then. John Weinberg was in charge some years back when something connected with the Boesky trading caused a problem for Goldman Sachs. I mean, if you run a business for 140 years, you're going to have problems from time to time. But listen, I'm sure we've got problems at Berkshire. We have 260,000 people working for Berkshire. Can you